Hey everybody, it's Mitch and welcome to my live stream. Thank you again for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. This is part 5 of my 7-part series of just thanking you guys for helping me reach 1,000 subs. Like, this really does mean a lot. Like, this has been huge for me. So, yeah, if you guys have anything you want to talk about in chat, any questions about D&D or anything, leave it in chat. This is your guys' stream to, well, do what you guys want to do. I'm a little bit, I know I'm running a little late. That's partly because there was nobody waiting when I went on at noon. And also, I was very tired and wasn't fully ready. So, yeah. So I postponed it, waited for chat to build up a little bit because it's way more fun doing these when there's actually people in chat for everybody. Like, it's easier for me and more fun. And I think I make a better stream when there's actually people watching and chatting. So, you know, I tried to, postpone it a little to wait for you guys and also to take care of some things for myself because I'm very, very tired. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I stayed up very late last night dropping those 3 shorts and that latest video on the Maester. So yeah, that's that's a thing. So I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but I'm here. Hello, good sir. What's up, Snagwolf? Welcome in. Hope you're doing well today. Just hanging out, doing our 5th of 7 of these live streams for hitting 1,000 subscribers, which thank you guys so much. But yeah, if you got any questions on the game of Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 or the channel or anything, I know my not latest video because I dropped one last night, but before that latest video of uh, what did I call it? Something about Dungeons and why to play Dungeons and Dragons over 3.5 over 5e, something like that. That one's doing very, very well. I suspected it would do well, but it's doing better than I thought. You know, I kind of get it. I mean, the thumbnail, I was very proud of that thumbnail. I hope you guys like that with the whole Drake meme. Uh, I watched the Maester vid and the shorts. Nice. Nice. I hope you enjoyed those. The Maester one is what I was talking about in the comments of, which video was it? Or which short was it? What was it? One of the magic item creation ones. Oh, brew potion? Yeah, brew potion. Someone had commented about it, and I mentioned that I had a video with a prestige class that would go well with the brew potion feat. And well, the Maester is it. Maester very good if you're going to be focusing on making magic items. If you want to be that guy that just makes all the magic items and sells them, and that's just your thing, you're just running a business making magic items, Maester's a really good prestige class for that because, well, they can make things twice as fast, which is just nice. They don't get a whole lot else besides that. And if that's your focus, losing a casting level is probably worth it. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. There's not a whole lot of reason to take that prestige class unless you're going to be focusing on crafting. Like that's what they are. Yeah. So, like I said in the video, if you want to, go around and do limited adventuring and more just be the town magic item maker, that's awesome. Good for an NPC shopper. Oh yeah, 100%. Also PCs, if they want to be, that's the kind of PC they want to be. I haven't played in these myself, but I have heard stories told to me firsthand. So to me it's secondhand, of people playing in games where they just decided to basically abandon the story and become merchants and shopkeepers and just set up a business. So, if that's the direction your party's taking the game, the Maester is a great class. But if it's not, maybe don't take it. you know? Um, yeah, but, I don't know, it's an alright one. I'm gonna start working on a couple other videos coming out. The next one will be coming out once I get it started. Uh, Artificial is better for PC in my opinion. I'm guessing you mean Artificer. Um, I'm not. I've heard of that one. I've heard a lot of good things about that one, but yeah, I'm not super familiar with it myself. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it. Yeah, FLL. Yeah, that makes sense. Although the Maester's a 5 level class, so you could probably do both. The fact that you can double your time is pretty nice, and I suspect it would stack if the Artificer also gets that. So yeah. Um, yeah. So because I don't know what the Artificer gets. It's not one I've looked into, but yeah, it's one where you can just do both. It's not a bad idea. Um, and you only need the one level in Maester in order to actually get the real benefit. You don't get any casting from that level, but the real benefit is double the casting, being able to make items twice as fast, which is useful if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, then don't take the class. But yeah, that's true of like any prestige class though. Like they all have their thing, and don't take them if you're not going to be using their thing. You know what I mean? I don't know, just kind of obvious stuff. But yeah. uh oh, and I am going to be getting my birthday's coming up, and for it I have my mother is going to be getting me some books. So I will be getting Stormrack, Sandstorm, and Frostburn. Those are going to get delivered to me here shortly in the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be cool. Going to be having some new books to work with. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Especially seeing as now that I have those, like I have kind of completed all the series books that aren't part of a setting. So I'm not going to have any like Forgotten Realms or anything. I don't have any of those books, but um, I'm going to have all of the series books. The races of books, the complete books. I already have all of those. Um, the you know Sandstorm, Stormrack, Frostburn, and Dungeonscape and Cityscape I already have, so I'm gonna have those all complete. I have all the monster manuals, both players' handbooks, both DMGs, um, all the good and evil books. So Book of Exalted Deeds, Book of Vile Darkness, and the two Fiendish Codexes. So all the ones that are like really like parts of series I have, and then it'll just kind of be random books, like one like the first random book that comes to mind is Tome of Battle. It's not part of any series; it's kind of there, but that's the first one that I want to get, and I have a few other random books as well, just lying around, what are some of them? I'm spacing. Oh, and I have expanded psionics as well. Um, you really need that in order to make the complete psionics work. But yeah, what's the other book that I got? I got Heroes of Horror, and yeah, I got a couple other random ones. So yeah, I'll just start picking up just random books that just kind of Unearthed Arcana probably is a good one to pick up at some point. So yeah, I'm gonna start doing that now. But what's nice is since I like with this channel, I've been going with series. Uh, HOH is Here's a Horror. Yeah, that is a really good one. The Archivist is such a good class, and there's a few other really good classes in there. It's a really really solid one. Yeah, I think that one also had the Dread Necromancer. Yeah, the Dread Witch. Yeah, the Dread Witch is also not bad. Like, I don't think it's compared to the Dread Necromancer. Well, compared to the actual classes like the Dread Necromancer and the Archivist, nah. The Dread Witch is nothing compared to those, but it's still really good. It's just, comparing it to other really good classes, that book's just got really good stuff in it. Dread Necromancer is so fun to play. It really is. And it's one of the handful of classes that, it's an arcane casting class that is spontaneous and it gets its full casting or it gets the full list. So you don't have to pick spells, like you just know all your spells. It's one of very few. And, um, it focuses on necromancy, which is just a really good class. Just a really good school and a really fun school. Like if you want to be a specialist necromancer as a, wizard or sorcerer, Dread Necromancer is really just a better option for the most part. Because, yeah, it's just such a good class. You get so many nice benefits. Um, yeah, it's just really good, and it actually kind of does stack with the Dread Witch as well. Like they do combo together decently. So it's not the best combo in the world. There's definitely a bit of anti synergy, but there's enough synergy that it works, and you can definitely make a build with it. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely a fun one. Dread Necromancer is a fun one though, and so is Archivist. Archivist is a little broken though, especially if scrolls are easy to come by because you can really do some crazy stuff, especially with Paladin and Ranger spells. The fact that those are allowed to be cast is a little bit insane. Like that's a little bit crazy because a fourth level paladin spell or a fourth level ranger spell is not really equivalent to a fourth level cleric or a fourth level druid spell. It's better. Like a fourth level paladin spell is better than a fourth level cleric spell, and a fourth level ranger spell is better than a fourth level druid spell. It just is. But yeah, it's that makes Archivist a little bit broken because of that. If you use the alt rule for um, escalating fear, they become a little better. The Dread Witch, yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. But yeah, in terms of freaking the what was I talking about? Man, I'm spacing on that. um, yeah, but yeah, you make a good point with what do you mean by the alt rule for escalating fear? Um, wait, normally fear does escalate, doesn't it? Like every time you take a step of fear, like basically they stack. Like certain ones are like basically +1, +2, +3, and if you get multiple, they'll just stack and kind of add together to get higher levels, which is really nasty when that happens. Um, yeah, that's fun. I've had some fun with fear in my game. One of my players, he decided what he was gonna. Well, he didn't really decide. I forget exactly what happened, but one of the enemies hit him with a fear effect, and he ended up panicked, which was hilarious because it effectively took him out of the entire fight. We were playing, in person. We were playing at the school. We had like a bunch of desks. We just, you know, set up the map on like we just, push four desks together and, turn two of them around, obviously to form a little spot and threw the map on top of that. And basically, what I did is every time he ran off the map. And with his movement speed, is every time his turn came, I would just like pick up his mini and I'd move it to like another desk that was farther away. Be like, all right, yeah, you're running away, so let's you're on the map currently. All right, I'm gonna move you to this nearby desk. Oh well, another turn pass. I'm gonna move you to this other desk. Oh, now you're on this other desk. So he was just like moving across the room every turn. Well, like he was rolling his saves every time to like see if he could beat the fear effect. Because I think that's how it worked or something. I can't remember how this particular one worked, but eventually he beat it. And when he, or it ended, I can't remember what. But yeah, eventually he ended the effect. And yeah, then he started running back, but he could only run back as fast as he ran away, because you have to run away as fast as you can. So basically, every turn that passed, not only was he not in the fight, but it was one more turn once he got back in the fight that he'd have to spend just getting back to the fight. So that was fun. He came back before the fight ended, like came back out of fear, but like he spent the rest of the fight running back to the battle, and he didn't make it back before the battle ended. So I don't know. It was funny. Um, Fear does have a lot of uh, monsters resistant to it. Still fun to use and really strong in crowd control situations. Yeah, and the Dread Witch makes it so that those resistances to fear, I believe it makes it so that they just ignores that, which is pretty nice. Um, yeah, Dread Witch is really good. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but I do recall the Dread Witch getting something that lets them ignore immunities and resistances to fear, which is really nice. Although I think they do get a bonus. Like I think they ignore immunity, but the immune creature gets like a plus 10 or 20 on their save. So, instead of just automatically passing the save because they're immune, they get a plus 20 and, you know, have a high chance of passing because of that, but still might fail if, their save isn't particularly high and, the DC is high enough. So, yeah, Dreadwitch can be very, very powerful. Um, yeah, and, Dread Necromancer, just great Necromancer. He's not much like the Dread is more just, talking about like how good of a Necromancer he is. He has nothing to do with Dread himself. But yeah, I like the Dread Necromancer a lot. I had one in our game. It was a very interesting one. Yeah, I believe he was a cohort, and I think his name was Shaggy, and he did this. He did it. The player for his cohort did a Shaggy impersonation for it. It was very funny. It was great. Or maybe it was the player. I don't remember. This was a long time ago. Current campaign, but the player left a long time ago, like years ago. So, uh, shaken, fear, panicked, and insanity, if I remember correctly. Ooh, insanity. Interesting. I didn't know about that one. I know shaken does like almost nothing. Like, okay, you're shaken, you take like some penalties on your attack roll or whatever. Okay, that's not that big a deal. Fear, the rolls actually get a little bit serious. That one's actually a real problem. Panicked, I know you are forced to run away from the source of your fear as fast as you can. Like you do not have a choice. You have to escape. Like if you're panicked, it's like, all right, like generally, like as the DM, if a player ends up panicked, I'll talk with the player, but I'm going to like take control of their player and tell them what they're going to do now that they're panicked. Like, okay, yeah, you're running. Um, it's like this is the fastest way out. This is the way you're gonna go. You know, um, yeah. Although sometimes you can let the player do it, but it's a weird one where you got to kind of work with player and DM. Um, and another thing with panic is if they happen to have access to like spells that let them teleport or gate, you know, they'd use them because it says get away from their fear as fast as possible. And what's faster than, gating to another dimension? That'll get you away from them. That'll definitely get you away from them, which my guess is if that was the case, they would probably gate away and then, you know, just sort of cower in the corner until the panic ended. So, yeah. And then, of course, they could just gate back so they could get faster, but they would have to use more spell slots, unless you're a true namer. I have a true namer in my party, and yeah, with him, he would gate away, and then he would just gate back on his first turn. That he wasn't panicked because he can gate effectively infinite times per day. Well, not infinite, but it's a lot because the DC just goes up a little bit each time, and his save is like his check is ridiculously high. So he can do quite a few of them before the check actually starts becoming, anything that he'll have to, have any real chance at failing. So I'm not familiar with phobias though, Snagwolf. At least not in terms of 3-5 context. I've seen them in other games. I know, like when I was playing GURPS, I had a phobia on one of my characters. That was fun. I had a character that was afraid of the number 13. That was very fun to play with. Yeah, it came up quite often. It was certainly interesting. My character, that was fun. There was one time he ran into like he was exploring like this old mine shaft, and he found a bunch of like dead bodies. And this isn't D&D. This is GURPS, and we're talking you know like seeing a bunch of dead bodies. That's real. Like that's going to be something more akin to real life than it would be in a fantasy world. And yeah, he saw like all these dead skeletons and bodies piled up in this cart. And he looked at them, and I asked the DM, how many are there? And he's like 13. I'm like, dang it. And I was like, because basically my character is going to be like, oh, 13 bodies, whatever. But when he found out there were 13 of them, he freaked out because that's not cool. 13. Yeah, uh, my guy was interesting. Uh, he also hated one of the most useful NPCs that we had in the group party. He was the doctor, one of the nicest guys, like super friendly, was just fascinated by stuff. And my guy hated him because when we interviewed everybody, he was the 13th person we interviewed. And I'm like, no, no, we are not taking the 13th guy. And everyone else is like, no, like he's amazing. We're taking him. And I'm like, no. But I got outvoted, and he ended up coming. And yeah, I hated him because of that. I was incredibly scared of this guy because he was our 13th pick or our 13th interview. Phobias, uh, page 66 or 61 of Heroes of War. Gotcha. Do not have that in arm's reach. That is way across the apartment. I literally can't just keep all my books right here. That's literally just a couch right there. So, yeah. Most of my books are way over on my bookshelf. If you've watched any of my short videos, you'll see the bookshelf I'm talking about. That is not near me currently. So, yeah. But yeah, Heroes of Horror, it's a fun book. I like it. I haven't read it that thoroughly, but I've looked at a couple of the classes and prestige classes in it. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be making some content on that at some point. I want to finish the complete series first. And then once I finish the complete series, I'll move on to the, what is it? The environment series. So, Stormwrath, Frostburn, all those books that are coming right now. I'll do that. And then once I finish that, I'll probably move on to Book of Exalted Deeds and Book of Vile Darkness and the two Fiendish Codexes. And then I'll start getting into some of the other stuff. Heroes of Horror is high up on the list, though. Insanity is extremely dangerous. It's a permanent status. Oof. That takes control away. Run from the source of fear. Do nothing. Attack the manifester or the nearest if you're lucky. If you're lucky, move normally. Although that last one's not. Or attack the source of the fear. That one's actually not terrible a lot of the time because if the source of the fear is, you know, the enemy, then that can be useful. But dang, yeah, the nearest one though can be that can be scary. Attacking like your party members, yeah, mid combat. That's really nasty. Let's see. Let's see. Run from the source of fear. I mean, that's just panic. That takes you out of the fight for 2 turns for every turn you do that, but still not terrible. Let's see. Do nothing takes you out of the fight for 1 turn. Um, yeah, attack the nearest is scary though. Attacking your friend can be nasty, and attacking the source can also be a problem too. But that often will amount to do nothing, because maybe it's an illusion and you're just attacking an illusion for no reason. Um, Although maybe with insanity, you've made it so that you know you've cast some sort of illusion on one of your player's allies, and you make it so that that player is now the source of the insanity. So you make it so that, okay, this person, when they go insane, if they get attack, source of fear, they're going to go for that specific player, and you force PvP. That can be really nasty. Um, yeah, running away though is also nasty too. Not gonna lie. Although there's multiple ways to get a lot of things to run away. Basically, anything that's eh, anything that's associated with any of the inner planes would be fairly easy to make run. Using turning, pretty much anything associated with them can be turned by various things. Um, if you have turn undead, you can turn things native to the uh, undead, but a lot of things in the negative energy plane are going to be undead, and yeah. And then with rebuke undead, you can actually use it to turn a particular category of of good things. I believe there's the deathless category, which is not really done a lot of, but I believe they are weak to rebuke undead, and that'll affect them just like turn undead affects regular undead, I believe. And then you have your elementals, which those things are, fire elementals can be turned by anyone with the water um, domain, and yeah, if you have the fire domain, you can turn fire, and and you can also rebuke your kind. So if you're fire, you can rebuke fire. So interesting. The elemental domains can be really nice. You grab two that aren't opposed, like fire and earth, and now basically any elemental you can, you know, either turn or rebuke, which is kind of cool, you know. So yeah, that could be an interesting thing to do. Haven't seen a build with that, but that could be good if you're dealing with a lot of elementals. So yeah, yeah, insanity. That does sound nuts. Having control taken away is not fun. I've seen it happen before, especially during combat. Like with the frenzied berserker, that happens, and I've seen that happen a decent amount. But at the same time, the control doesn't go away until after combat's over. So with insanity, having your control taken away mid fight while there's still enemies trying to kill you, that can be nasty, because now the party is forced to like split its focus and be like, okay, some of us are going to have to deal with this insane guy and use resources to try and do something about him, while others are dealing with the enemy that's still actively trying to kill them. That's nasty. Whereas with Frenzied Berserker, the enemy goes down and then you lose control. And now the party doesn't have to split focus. They just turn their attention from dealing with the enemy to dealing with their friend, and making it so that they can, you know, stop his bloodthirsty rampage, without any casualties on either side. often, which is interesting because it often involves trying to heal a guy while he's trying to kill you, which is interesting because yeah, a lot of the times frenzied berserkers will maintain their frenzy after combat in order to not die because they're at negative HP and using deathless frenzy to survive. So yeah, that's a whole different can of worms. But yeah, um, although I'd say that using your turn attempts for divine meta magic is way more effective. To be honest, it can be, although I would say there's better use than that. But regular turning can be useful in a pinch. I would agree for the most part. Um, Regular turning is, I think, better than divine meta magic. It just doesn't come up nearly as often. So if you have the use to do turning, oh, I would definitely use turning over using it for divine meta magic, especially if you have like greater turning and stuff. But if you don't, it like if you don't have the opportunity to just use turning regularly, which most of the time, then yeah, divine meta magic, because you can always do that. But there's an even better use than divine meta magic. What was it? The devotion feats. So burning turn undead attempts on devotions way more effective than divine meta magic, because divine meta magic is super expensive. It's one plus the meta magic feat, and that's how many turn attempts you get. Well, you have to use, which means you're gonna get like I have a player in my group that has this, and he gets like one like I think he can do one maximized a day, or I can't remember which one he has. But yeah, he can only use like he has a reach. Yeah, he has reach spell, which he can do like twice a day with divine meta magic, which not great. It's cool that he can do it, but the fact that it just takes so many turn on net attempts is really nasty. Maybe it's 3 or 4, I don't know, but he has another one that he can only do. I don't know if he even has enough turn on dead attempts to do twice. I think it's close, but I think he's a little short. Um, Also, he's very short in character. Um, he's a halfling with reduced person and permanency on him, so yeah. Uh, uh, Often called quarter. He's sometimes we call him a quarterling, and yeah, DMM is very feed expensive. Yeah, because you have to drop like a ton of feats on just more extra turning in order to get one more use of it, which and not even one use because it's 4 more turn and dead attempts, and you know so the good ones are going to take 5 turn on dead attempts. So yeah, and he didn't like he's in divine meta magic and use a decent number of feats, but he's also got feats on other things. So yeah, divine meta magic something that he uses a couple of times a day for clutch moments to be able to do some pretty crazy stuff. Um, yeah, but aside from that, he can't really do a whole lot with it. I think it might be, yeah, I think it's empower he has. So, he could empower like a heal mass and do stupid amounts of damage if he wanted to, but that's a once a day thing. Um, because the one nice thing about divine meta magic is it doesn't increase the spell level when it activates. So you can use a ninth level spell with it, and it's still a ninth level spell. So that much is nice, but it's extremely resource intensive. But it doesn't increase spell level. Speaking of clerics, what kind of cleric do you prefer to play since they're so versatile? Personally, I prefer the heal bot just because I'm boring. I know it's like the worst type of cleric, but that's what I've played the most. I don't know. I like healing. It's not really the best kind of cleric by any means. I'm well aware of that. But most of the time, if I'm playing a cleric, I'm usually when I play a cleric, it's because I'm playing a DMPC, and I just like, okay, the party needs a healer. I'm just going to be the healer. So I'm going to play an unoptimized build to, give them some healing when they need it, but at the same time, like, not take away from the party. You know what I mean? I don't want to like take away their glory. You know what I mean? Like they get all the cool moments, and I'm just like, all right, you're hurt. I'll heal you up. But yeah, there's so many other ways to play them. Um, Combat cleric's another way. Like if I was actually a player, I think I'd probably go with a combat cleric. Self buff and you know go in and smack things around, throw on a couple healing spells in case I get low and need a touch up or something. Especially if it's a turn where you know I don't really need it. Like I'm already fully buffed and I'm not within range of the enemy. I can move and then use my standard action to heal. Not a bad option in those situations. Sometimes healing is good in combat. Like, what if you don't have anything? What if you're not in range? Oh, I mean, I guess you could instead of a healing spell, do a spell with a range and attack with a spell at a distance. That's probably a better option, to be honest. Healing still has use, especially post combat. Oh yeah, 100%. During long dungeon crawls. Yep. Although those spell slots could have been used for other things. That's true. And in terms of post combat healing, a lot of the times you're better off with low level stuff like cure minor wounds. Use a cantrip just to get a free stabilization. Not bad for after combat. And in terms of like what were you saying, long dungeon crawls and stuff, you know, a lot of the time you're going to be standing in a room for a few minutes or whatever. So you put fast healing on, and that's just going to be way better than a cure spell because fast healing spells give way more healing per spell, like per spell power, than a spell that just gives you a bunch of healing all at once. Like, um, yeah, because the one that gives you a bunch of healing all at once, it's like, okay, well, I'm in dire straits. You hit them with that, and now you're not in dire straits anymore, and you can survive a couple hits. Whereas if someone's in dire straits and you hit them with something that gives them fast healing, they're still in dire straits. I mean, less dire straits, but still dire straits, and they probably can't survive a hit. So there's definitely trade-offs on that. But out of combat, when you're going multiple rounds, with no combat, yeah, that's just free healing. Way, way more effective to do fast healing out of combat. Um, yeah, and honestly, any sort of feats or abilities that just give fast healing naturally, 100% worth it. Even if it's just one, like healing one hit point per round is huge. Or even if you get something that just heals 1 point a minute, that's not bad. Like that's probably worth it depending on what you have to do to get it. But yeah, that can be really big for out of combat healing. Like one a minute, that's 60 points an hour. You can fully heal within a day of just resting like that, like very easily. And maybe not even a day. Like you can probably fully heal in a couple of hours, which a lot of the time is going to make a big difference. In a dungeon crawl, you might not get a whole lot out of it, but you'll get at least a few points. But like in something where you're fighting dawn to dusk, where time's passing very slowly, you start you start the day in one fight, and then you do some things, you move on, you go to another fight. Like if you're traveling over land or something, yeah, like you can probably fully heal between fights. So yeah, um, definitely can be very useful. Even one hit point a minute can be very useful for out of combat healing. So yeah, out of combat, especially if it's just like a constant thing that you just, because there are ways to get that. There are absolutely ways to heal 1 HP a minute, for no like active resources. Passive resources that you spent resources to get that ability, but now that you have it, you're not spending any resources to maintain it. Like there's two different types of resources. you know there's resources like a feat that grants passive healing. you know you spent resources getting the feat, but now that you have it, you don't have to spend any resources to gain its effect. Unlike a spell, okay, you spent resources getting the spell, and you also have to spend resources to use the spell. So they're a little different. But it's still good to have that stuff. And then, you know, then there's one-time use stuff like potions and stuff where you spend resources to get the potions and then they're gone as soon as you use them. So they're cheap, which is the advantage of that, but they're one-time use. Once they're gone, once you use them, they're gone, and you can never benefit from them again. Magic items for regeneration are, of course, way better, but you can't count on getting them often. Yeah, it really depends on your DM and like how high a level you are and all that stuff. If your DM, like I personally, just because I think it's fun, I say, all right, you're in a major city, magic item books sources are all open. Buy whatever you want, as long as you have enough money for it. I let them go crazy. That's my personal style. But a lot of DMs aren't that nice. So yeah, you can't really count on that. And even I have some restrictions of if you're in a major city, you can't buy epic stuff. You just can't really find it. They only sell they sell all the non-epic stuff, but the epic stuff's a little bit too advanced to have there. Maybe you'll get lucky and find one or two things lying around, but it's probably not what you're looking for. Whereas, it's like, all right, you want to go crazy and start buying some epic stuff and some really strange customized stuff. And like, yeah, if you want like customized stuff, that's not just going to be lying around. It's like, oh yeah, I want this armor piece that does blah 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 blah. It's like, you're going to need to spend some time getting that crafted. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to have to be made custom. So people can do it, but it's not just lying around at the shop. Although I've kind of been forgetting to do that last part of taking time, but they have so much downtime, it's not a huge deal. I basically let my players have as much downtime as they want, within reason. Like sometimes they'll take like a whole month to just like build up their forces. Currently, their main enemy is very much devoted to the strategy of hunker down and wait for the party to come to them. Because, it's a little more advantageous to fight on your home turf. You know what I mean? Because you can set the traps and all that. So they're focusing very much on that, which, gives them the advantage in battle, but it gives the players the advantage of, you know, being able to take their time and and challenge the fight on their time. That's kind of the trick with fighting. It's you either fight on your time or on your turf. It's you like typically it's one or the other. You usually get to pick one, although sometimes it's picked for you. But yeah, like maybe you get ambushed and it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm fighting on my turf. Or maybe you're ambushed in transit, so now you're forced to fight and not on your turf. That can happen, but yeah, it's not a terrible idea. Maybe I should try that on my players. But yeah, usually you get one or the other. But currently the Devils have been focusing on fighting on their own turf and letting the players come at them when they're ready. I don't know. It's easier for me. Epic items for an auction. You could build an entire heist around getting one. Not that it'll be easy to steal one. True. Also, could have the players attempt to haggle for it, making a social encounter. I could. Normally, I'm not huge on the social encounters. I don't know. I'm awkward with them. My players tend to be awkward with them. For me, it doesn't work as well. I don't know. I personally am not a big fan of the buying stuff thing, but normally what I do with epic items is I just say, all right, you guys want a gate to sigil? And that's how they get theirs. They just go to sigil, and my players can be very chaotic, and they kind of tone it down a bit once they get to Sigil because they know that breaking the rules there is a very bad idea, even for epic 26 level characters. Um, the auction idea is not bad though. Same with doing doing a heist. Those could be really fun ideas. Heist is interesting though because when I think heist, like what was that build? That prestige class I did recently. I'm trying to remember what it was, but it's not a very good prestige class, but it is very much designed for doing heists. That's really like its whole gimmick is heists. But yeah, like they usually just go to Sigil. But yeah, Sigil is a place where things behave under different rules, and if you're not careful, things can go very bad very quickly. And trying to just brute force your way out of them is a terrible idea. I don't know how familiar you are with Sigil, but yeah, the law enforcement there is who was it? It's basically it's an upper deity that's like only vaguely known of, like because it's a deity that's above the deities that are actually known. Like this is like a deity of deities, but like one of the lower ranking ones of those. So this thing is just like beyond powerful, and it's this deity's job is basically to enforce the laws in Sigil and make people behave and punish anyone who breaks the rules. Uh, uh, Ao the Overgod. I don't think it's Ao the Overgod, but it is the late. I think it's like the Black Lady or something. Not the Black. I'm trying to remember her name, but yeah, I think it was a lady. But yeah, I know like almost nothing's known of her because like the higher gods aren't known of. It's really only like the lower gods that are known of to mortals. Basically the rules with gods is yeah, for higher tiers just make up whatever, there is no lore, and the players have no way of obtaining this lore until they like actually start reaching godhood, and then like these are the gods of the gods, although as far as I'm concerned in any D&D game, the ultimate god is the dungeon master himself or herself. The dungeon master is the ultimate deity that controls all the other deities. That I've actually kind of wanted to do a crazy campaign with that at some point. Let my players go absolutely nuts with building like pun builds and be like, okay, you guys can all make pun builds, and basically the campaign is you fight me, and by me, I mean me, the DM. I will, the ultimate god of the universe. I will just make up random crap, whatever the heck I feel like, and I will, throw it at you, and you're going to have to deal with it. And I can be as unfair and break any rules I want, and good luck, you know. Yeah, I thought that might be a fun, well, not really full campaign, but that could be a fun little, one shot for, maybe a few sessions. The Lady of Pain, that's it. Yeah, the Lady of Pain. She's the one who guards, or not guards, but enforces the rules in Sigil. And you don't want to mess with her because I'm pretty sure there's no stat blocks for her, and the lore on her is pretty scarce. So, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to, like, my players know not to mess with her. Like, they know not to, like, mess around in Sigil and invoke her wrath. Because, like, they know that even as strong as they are, they're no match for her. So, it would be absolute suicide for them to do anything to cause too much trouble in Sigil. On par with Aoshi is. Yeah, like, yeah, I would say that honestly, the way I look at it, those two are the lower gods of the gods of the gods, which is why they're known of. Um, but really, antagonizing any god is a bad idea. That's true. Although at level 26, they might be able to. They might be able to put up a halfway decent fight against some of them, especially some of the weaker gods, like ironically Tiamat. Like my players might be able to stand a halfway decent chance against Tiamat. Um, but I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going to buff her original stat block, but yeah, like some of those gods just aren't as strong. But the higher level gods, yeah. But I would honestly say the over gods like Ao and the Lady of Pain, I would say they're probably two of the weaker over gods because we know about them. That's why they're the weaker ones. The stronger ones they don't bother with the mortal world at all. It's only the lowliest of the over gods that that will even lower themselves to interact with mere mortals in the slightest. You know, Ao and the Lady of Pain, they don't interact with the mortals much, but they do a little, which is why they're lower over gods. At least the way I look at it. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like the higher up ones, we don't know they exist because they don't lower themselves to deal with mortals at all. And that's not even counting mystical horrors. Yeah, like there's so much stuff that can be done. But the highest god that the players don't, well, that the characters don't know, but the players, I always tell them, the highest god in the game is always the DM, and basically the DM can just make up whatever crap they want. Like the god, the DM, it's in my game, it's literally me, Mitch, who is the highest god in my game, and my powers are I can make whatever I want happen, and that's just how it is, and I can bend and break any rules I feel like whenever I feel like, and deal with it. Which normally I'm not going to. Normally I'm not going to bother with that. Although, interestingly enough, the highest of all gods, the DM, does actually stoop to dealing with the players, not in a way that they can recognize, but in a way that guides the entire storyline. Because that's how D&D works. It's God of absolute authority in my games only, but yeah. Um, I always wanted to kill Tiamat and make her uh, uh, a Draco Lich. Ooh, interesting. Tiamat would be one of the hardest. I think Tiamat's actually tougher than Bahamut, despite the fact that like Bahamut's book is being stronger, like build is being stronger. Like all the lore says Bahamut's stronger, but when you look at action economy, those 5 heads of Tiamat, I think they got him beat. Cause yeah, Bahamut's has a lot less action economy. He's only got a single full round action to deal with, whereas Tiamat gets 5. It only needs 1 head to control the body, to move and make full attacks, and then the other 5 heads can do breath weapons and use magic and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, having 5 heads is really nice. Like literally, it only takes 1 head to control the body and do full attacks. Um, the other heads are all free to you know, do other things. At least that's the way I look at it. Tia has more things to deal with you. Exactly. Like personally, what I would do if I was playing Tiamat and I was attacking the party, I would have 1 head go in and move and attack the party, or just full attack if I happen to be in range. I would have, then I'd have probably the other 4 heads on that first turn blast with breath weapons, like all 4 of them. And then on the next turn, any hit the 1 head that moved would blast with this breath weapon, as well as any of those 4 heads that happen to roll a 1 and has their breath weapon available again, and they would all use their breath weapons. And then I'd have one of the heads that didn't roll a 1 full attack, and any others that are still available start casting spells. you know, and then just keep repeating that pattern. One head full attacks. Uh, all heads that have breath weapons use them. The rest use magic. Yeah. Can you talk about how warlock incantations work? How many times per day can you use them? So the answer to your question on how many times per day, how many turns are there in a day? They can use them as many times per day as a fighter can swing his sword. Yeah, there is no limit on that. They are they are not capped. That is one of the nice advantages of warlocks with their incantations. They can use them as much as they want. They're just not as strong as spells. That's the downside. Um, in terms of what a warlock can do in a turn, they're weaker. But they don't have the downside that other casters do of being limited to certain number of spells per day and having to carry, you know, spell components and having, material or well, I already said material, but having somatic and verbal components and all that. Nah, they can just blast away. Um, yeah, they're really nice on that. They're very limited on what they can do. Like if you think a sorcerer is very restricted in how many spells they can know, the warlock is even more so. But the sorcerer has higher spells per day than the wizard to make up for that, and also can cast spontaneously to make up for that. Whereas the warlock, they don't even have to worry about that. They don't have spell slots. They can just yeah, they can just cast as much as or not. Yeah, they can just use their incantations as much as they want with no restrictions. The only restrictions that they have at all is when using Eldritch Blast, they're only allowed to apply one of each different type of blast incantation. Like there's I forget what they're called, but there's one that affects the blast type and one that affects the shape. They're only allowed to put one of each on each Eldritch Blast. But the next turn they can do an Eldritch Blast with a different one. Um, you know, so yeah, Warlocks, no restrictions on that. Whatever powers whatever incantations you take, you can use freely at will. A lot of the incantations are actually not even ones that you use; they're just passive incantations. So those ones just don't take actions to do. They're just on all the time. So those ones are kind of nice. Yeah. Personally, I recommend for optimal gameplay keeping one of each type of blast incantation. One for the type and one for the shape, and then grab a few passives and a few just regular active ones that you have to use actions to use. But yeah, warlocks can use their incantations as much as fighters can swing their sword. Like, how often can fighters swing? How often can the fighter use swing sword? How many turns are there in a day? Although that's actually not quite true. If a fighter were to be attacking literally all day, honestly, me and I think most DMs worth their salt would say, after a few dozen rounds of combat, you're probably going to have to start looking at fatigue rules. And if there's not any there, you kind of like make stuff up for continuous combat that kind of fits with the existing fatigue rules. So yeah, but yeah, and I would say the same goes for warlock. Like blasting your incantations constantly would get tiring after a while, and eventually have to start making saves to not get tired. Not that your powers are going to run thin, but you might just be, out of breath and need a breather, But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Topaz Guardian Prestige class? I'm not familiar with it. My DM introduced them into our campaign in an aberration heavy campaign. I am not familiar with the Topaz Guardian. What book's that from? Because I'm not familiar with that. Uh, in getting magic items like crazy. Oh, the Warlock. Oh yeah, the Warlock's actually really good for making magic items. once they hit 12th level. They're pretty terrible at it before 12th level, but once they hit 12th level, they become amazing. They kind of go from not really capable of making most magic items since they don't have access to spells. Like they just don't. They have access to their incantations, but most magic items require you to, have a spell and cast it into the magic item, which warlocks can't do unless they have a scroll or a staff or something and attempt to use magic item or an ally that has the spell. But at 12th level, they get a class feature that lets them do that without needing that, which is really huge. But yeah, it's interesting that a class feature that was mostly just designed to let them make magic items in the first place was written so simply that it made them like kind of broken at making magic items. It's kind of crazy that one little class feature really does that. It's sort of like True Namer in a way. Like True Namer goes from being really bad to not to actually being kind of decent when they hit 20th level. Because at 20th level, they can just kind of gate basically infinitely. So that can be extremely powerful just because of how strong the spell gate is. But, being able to just freely go between the planes and also being able to summon very powerful things, or not, well, not summon, but call very powerful creatures to your aid. Yeah, that can be very, very useful. Um, yeah, uh, very, very useful. Uh, but yeah, Artificer says hi. That yeah, the Artificer is also good at making magic items. Um, Honestly, I don't know what's better, the Artificer or the Warlock, or maybe you go. Though I think Artificer might be prestige class. I have not looked into it near as much as I should have. And if it's a prestige class, maybe you go Warlock and then Artificer. That could be a good way to do it. Because yeah, it's from Lords of Madness 3.5. Nice. That is not one that I have. And yeah, for Topaz Guardian, got it. Yeah, I don't have the Lords of Madness. That was not one that I've looked into really at all. I'm going to look into it at some point, but there are a lot of 3.5 books, and I've only looked in, like, there's only so much time for me to look into all of them. Like, I'm something of an expert at the game, but there's plenty I don't know. There's definitely guys that know a lot more about this game than me. I'm just, the one putting his face out there and putting the time to actually make these YouTube videos and, live streams and all that fun stuff, which, takes time and energy and all that, which a lot of the experts really don't feel like doing. So, it is what it is. Also in Ebron, right? The Artificer could very well be in Ebron. That was now that you mentioned Ebron, I'm like, because I was spacing on like the settings because I know like Forgotten Realms, and I'm like, I know there's another one that I'm missing, another really popular one. I'm like, there it is, Ebron. I'm like, I was like completely forgetting it. There might be another one too that I'm forgetting as well, but because I know Ebron's a popular setting, but I feel like it's not the one that I was thinking. But anyways, yeah. At some point, I am going to start looking into all the settings books. I'm probably going to try and do those last, though. That's kind of my current plan: is get literally everything else. Toril, maybe, or maybe Ebron was what I was thinking of. But I am going to do all the settings at some point. But I think I'll do them after like I've done everything else. Like I've done, Lords of Madness and stuff like that. Like once I've combed through all of the non-settings books and covered every single one of them, that's probably when I'll pick up Forgotten Realms, and then after that pick up Ebron, and then some of the others. Or maybe I'll do it before then. I don't know. I haven't fully decided yet. It's still a decent ways. I still have to finish the complete series, and then I have to finish the environment series, and then I have to finish the good and evil series, and then we can start looking at stuff, because that's when I start having to make some choices. Some harder choices on what to cover next. Because so far it's been fairly easy and obvious what books to cover. You know what I mean? Like, all right, we'll cover the complete series and the race series. All right, those make sense. Those are books that I have. Like, I have all the complete books now. I haven't for very long, but I had half of them. And I had all the race books, because there's only three of them. Or sorry, four. Um, so I had all of those, so I did those, and the player's handbook too. That's a good obvious choice. Interestingly enough, I haven't covered any of the monster manuals. Not really. So that might be a thing I might cover at some point. Like, if I start running out of material, I can just start making videos about monsters. That's a thing that I might start covering at some point. Or maybe even if I'm not running out, I might just start making videos on every monster in the game. I don't know. Could be an interesting idea. Uh, Not really something that, players are going to be making, but I don't know. I can see why players might want to know about monsters. Like, if there happen to be their DM's throwing a particular monster at them, they might want to do some research on it and look it up and see what the monster has. So that might be a thing. I don't know. Something that something I'm looking into. Basically anything that's 35, I'm on. I'm down to cover. There's only so much material out there for me to cover, and you know, I don't want to run out of material, because when that happens, that's a problem. I don't know what's going to happen to the channel once I've covered everything. Um, do your players use Savage Species? I let them. They aren't currently using it though. But yeah, I love the Savage Species book. It's great. But one reason why they haven't used it is currently they're level 26. So three, but yeah, they're currently level 26. So there's no reason to use Savage Species when you're high level. Like, Savage Species is explicitly for playing low level to be able to play as a high level, be as a strong monster at first level, like, which is really cool. And I love that idea. It's so awesome, but it's also not the most practical a lot of the times. Doing so is usually underpowered, and mine's a pretty high optimized campaign, which kind of sucks, because I love Savage Species, but using it is very underpowered. 3.5 is so big. I'm still learning new things. Oh yeah, same. Like, it's massive. Like, I think with my collection of books, which is pretty impressive, I'd say I have somewhere between a third and half of all the Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 books, in terms of like hardback books, which, that's saying something. And I might not even be right on that. There might be even more than that. But yeah. And I am even with all that, I'm still a bit worried about, like, running out of material for content, just because I know that the complete books that I'm working on are some of the most, they're some of the most dense books out there in terms of prestige classes. There are so many prestige classes, as well as classes in the complete books. So many. Like, I think Complete Warrior alone has 40 different prestige classes. It's absolutely ridiculous. Whereas, a lot of the other books are going to have much, much fewer. So in terms of the content I've been covering, a lot of the other books that I'm going to start hitting once I finish the complete series, they're not going to have as much for me to cover. At least that's my fear. And I think there's a lot of justification to it. That's because I'm pretty sure these complete books are really slowing me down a lot, just because of how dense they are, which is great, because it's giving me a lot more material. But yeah, I'm gonna have to find other things to cover and stuff once once I start getting through that, because I think I might start running out of prestige classes. That might be a thing. But yeah, and at some point I'm probably going to start, remaking some of the older videos, because the older stuff is not in as good a quality. But I think I kind of want to up my quality a little bit more, because I don't think I'm where I need to be yet in terms of quality. I'm working on it, and I'm learning and improving and growing, but I think I could definitely stand to make higher quality videos, and I'm slowly figuring out how to do that. So, speaking of exotic races, pixies are a favorite. Oh, I had one of those in my game for a little bit. And succubus are nasty, but guileless. Ooh, that does sound nasty. I haven't looked into that particular combo, but without the spell slots and being really squishy for their level. Yeah, okay, you got to point to that. But yeah, pixies are fun. We had one briefly. Um, really high. Like, I think it's like 6 levels that you're going to be behind, which is huge. But you get some really nice stuff, like invisibility at will, or like, I think it was greater invisibility at will or something. And on top of that, you also get you're tiny, and you get like Pixie gets so much stuff. Like, they can very, very easily just hide. Uh LA4 at the lowest, yes, but I believe they also have 2 racial hit dice on top of that. So that makes them 4 or 6 levels behind, which is nasty, because you do have to count for both. The level adjustments can be burned off. The racial hit dice can't, um, which isn't the worst. Uh, what's up, Bloodpot? Well, you're live again. Don't have much time, but thought I'd pop in and wave hi. Yeah, good to see you, Bloodbot. Um, Glad to see you here. But yeah, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Just doing my weekly live streams. Going to be doing 2 more of these things. So, that's the plan. And then, more when we hit 2K, which, we're making some progress too. We're at 1.07. We just need another 930 subs. So we've actually made a reasonable amount of progress already. So I would not be surprised at all if by the time we finish these 7 live streams, we're already 10% of the way to 2K, not counting the progress that it took to 1K, like the additional 1K that's needed. So yeah, a price to pay for perma invis and flight. Oh yeah, that's true. Flight is something that you can just get later, although I guess it can't be suppressed since it's non-magical flight. So yeah, you got to point to that. But perma invis is really hard to get. I don't know if there's ways to get that with magic that aren't extremely resource intensive. So yeah, that's actually pretty nice. And those racial modifiers are great. Oh yeah, that's true. What a huge bonus to charisma. Do pixies also get what was it? They get charisma to something, don't they? Like charisma to AC or something, if I recall correctly. I or am I thinking of the wrong thing? But I think pixies also get charisma to AC, which would stack with other sources of charisma to AC, which is pretty easy to get. But multi-stacking it, or was it saves? But I can't remember. But yeah, multi-stacking it's super good. I think it is saved. Not saves. I think it is AC, which is harder than saves to get. So yeah, or could just do 1 a week regardless, and maybe get more subs that way too. That's true. Although I don't know, it is tricky to. I don't know. Doing these is. I mean, it takes a lot of time and energy and all that fun stuff. So to me, it's more of like a reward for you guys. for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. And then, I did my first live stream when I hit 100 subscribers. I did some more when I hit 200 and then 500. And with every milestone, I do more live streams and also longer live streams, because that first one was only half an hour. I just won for 100 subs. But yeah, I plan on continuing to add 2 live streams to how many I do with each goal I hit, as well as half an hour on each live stream. So eventually I'll be sitting here, like, I was doing some math, and I think when if I if I ever get to like where Mr. Beast's at with 100 million, I think I'd be doing like 30 live streams for that, and each of them would be like 7-8 hours or something crazy. I can't remember the exact math. It was the other day, and it wasn't that important because it's not that realistic. But yeah, it'd be a lot when I hit that. But I don't think we're going to be hitting that. But even at 1 million, it's still pretty crazy, and that's somewhat realistic. I don't know if I can hit 1 million ever, but I just don't know if this niche is big enough. But yeah, I think we can definitely get well past the 1K where we're at. I think 10K is pretty realistic, and 100K probably pretty doable. AC to charisma is Nymphs. Oh, gotcha. Pixies get natural armor +1. Gotcha. Yeah, that was it. Nymphs. Nymphs are really good with that. But nymphs are also hard to get into. I think it's also a pretty heavy racial one. I always get those mixed up. I don't know. I guess all Fae look alike to me. What can I say? No, well, sort of, but fantasy race. A little different. Does take time, but it's also easy content you can post on YouTube. That is true. I mean, I sit down for 2 hours. I get a 2-hour video. Don't have to edit. It's not bad, but I do have to kind of rely on chat, because these streams, there's a pain to make, and they're also not that good if people don't show up. Like, people showing up is really what makes or breaks a stream. If you guys aren't here, and I'm just talking to myself, the stream's not very good. And it's also so painful to do it. So yeah, having you guys here is very much appreciated. Let's see. Then you can title the video whatever major subjects you talked about. Ooh, I get what you're talking about. So yeah, I could potentially do something like that, instead of just doing these basic titles of 1,000 subscriber live stream. Thank you, part 1, or what, 5 of 7. So I think what this one's called. Not really the most engaging title. It's descriptive. It says what it is, but yeah, because I don't know what the heck these live streams are going to be about before I go in. Like, you guys get to decide that. You guys are like, you get to, like, where we go with this video is completely up to you. Like, we've been talking about, like, all the subjects we've talked about is because somebody mentioned something in chat, which is awesome. That's like what this is designed to be. Even without chat, you could have some set things you'd want to talk about. Yeah, I've done that. And then end the stream early if you're done with your subjects, if chat isn't talking much anymore. I suppose I could, although right now I don't end early because this is a reward. So I'm like, no, I got to stick it out and give you the full 2 hours. Because that's kind of that's the way I look at it. It's like, these live streams are like your guys' like reward for like helping me hit 1,000 subscribers. So yeah. Do you believe 3.5 suffered from rules bloat? A bit, yeah. Yeah, it definitely suffers from rules bloat. I love the game, but yeah, there's a lot of supplements and stuff. It's kind of what I like about it, but it's also the same. It's also the main problem with attracting new players. It's very intimidating. So, like, even I wasn't very intimidated to get into this game at first. And I got into it back in like '06, '09 when there wasn't that much rules bloat. So it was pretty tough even with that. Um, because compared to 5e, like even just the base game it has a much steeper learning curve. So yeah, that is a bit of a trick, but at the same time, you got a good DM that's willing to work with you. You can make a pretty good game, and it's not so intimidating. Like a lot of DMs are very willing to work with new players, and a lot of like experienced players are very willing to help new players as well. Personally, I think the ideal group is about half new players, half experienced players, because you want the new players because that those are the people who are learning and growing and they have fresh eyes and come up with new and interesting ideas. Um, and then you have the experienced players who actually know what they're doing and know what works and know what's good. And also, by having new players, it keeps the game alive. If there's no new people playing, guess what? The community's dying. Like you need new players to keep the community alive. Like I know new players feel intimidated and like, they're not really like, you know, they feel lesser than the more experienced players. I know I certainly did, and I definitely get the vibe that a lot of the new players that I've played with feel that way. But you know, everybody's new, and we absolutely need new players to keep this game alive and healthy. Without new players, the game's gonna die because we're all gonna get older and have less time and eventually die, and the game will. So there goes the game if we don't get new players. But if we got new players, then it can keep going forever. So, yeah, no non-reward. Yeah, you got a point. But anyway, good to talk a few minutes. I got to get back to work. Take care. Has a blessed one. You too, Bloodbot, if you're still there. Don't know if you already took off while I was still talking about that, but if you're still there, have a good one. And take care, man. Thanks for stopping in. Um, the supplements definitely generated diverse and interesting characters 100%, as well as solutions to various encounters or hurdles. Oh yeah, which is good and bad, because if people are super familiar with all the supplements, it makes it so that they can use those solutions to make it so that a lot of encounters and hurdles aren't nearly as much of a threat as they were designed to be, which can be a bit of a problem. But it is what it is. But I personally love the supplements. I love like how robust this game is and like just how much you can do with it. Like one of my favorite things about this game is you can go in with a concept of like, I want to make a character that's kind of like Rambo. Let's make a Rambo character, and then you just do it. You like examine, the character of John Rambo, and you like look at the rules, and you find a way to make something that's close. And maybe you shift goals partway through, because you realize what you were going for isn't quite working, but another like side benefit that you were getting is working really well. So you like kind of switch over to that. I don't know. I find that really, really fun. Or maybe you don't switch over to that. But yeah, just the whole going in with a concept and then just going like just spending a couple hours just like nose deep in books, just like poring over source material, trying to figure out the best way to optimize this character to make exactly what you're looking for, or maybe changing your mind, like, and just like coming up with a really cool character that you're really proud of at the end. That's fun for me. Like, I love that about 3.5. And then playing the character is just the payout. That's like, being able to like say, okay, this character that I put all this time and energy investing in and making awesome, let's see how good they really are. Let's show off how awesome this character is. And half the time they're not half as cool as you thought, which sucks, but it is what it is. And I love that. That's what I love about this game. And all the supplements make that very possible. That's why I call 5e dumbed down, because you can't do that in 5e. You just can't. Yeah. You don't need to follow every rule in 3.5. Some exist that never get use even. Oh, that's 100% true. Like, there's plenty of time. Well, I mean, all of them get used in some campaign or another, but Maybe not one you've ever been in, but I'm sure every rule has been used by somebody. But yeah, there's plenty of rules that you'll never encounter, like, you know, things like tripping rules. Maybe nobody does that in your campaign. Okay. And I guess you don't need to look up those rules ever, you know, although tripping can be extremely useful. So that one's one that probably will be used, but it hasn't been used a whole lot in my campaign, to be honest. Uh, Such as grapple. Oh, I've used grapple a fair amount personally, but yeah, that's one thing that, maybe nobody grapples. Maybe that just never comes up. Or maybe it does. That's one of those things that, like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, like trip, grapple, all those things like that. Tripping monk is hilarious. Yeah, that can be a fun one. I personally like Personally, I think the monk needs a buff to stunning fist. I think the monk needs like a feat that it can take, or something that or a prestige class that's kind of like the Dread Witch, that will make it so that anything that's immune to stunning instead gets a +20 on their save, so that the monk use his stunning fist on can actually use his stunning fist and not have half the game just straight up immune to it, because that's such a major thing of the monk. And the monk would be a lot less bad if it was able to use its stunning fist more reliably. So yeah. Could the 3.5 ebooks have been organized? They are somewhat organized. They're organized in, like, you have your complete warrior, complete, adventurer, different races. Each book kind of has its own theme. Figuring out, and if you're trying to build a certain type of character, you can kind of know, like, which books are likely to apply to it. Like, if I'm building a barbarian, I'm not going to pull out my complete mage, or my complete arcane, or my complete divine, because they're probably not going to have anything that's useful to a barbarian build that's wielding a two-handed weapon and just trying to hack and slash. Those books aren't going to be useful to him. So I'm probably not going to pull those out for building him. Just as I'm probably not going to pull out the complete warrior when I'm building a mage. You know, just things you gotta like. So it is organized to some extent, but sometimes there's multiple books that might have something you're looking for. So yeah, or organized. Let's see. I use grapple to stop a dragon from flying away. Nice, that's always funny, especially if it's a really big dragon. That's hard to do because they have insane grapples, but you can definitely do it if you have a really high grapple score, and that can be done if there's various ways to do that. Even as a mage, just kelp strand can work. You can get stupid high rolls on that. Organized better. Oh yeah, I can absolutely be organized better. Like, I understand the reason why it's organized the way it is, but yeah, I suppose that having like a book that just organized everything would work. Could be really nice, just like a compendium. Um, yeah, that could be really interesting, because I know they have a few compendiums. Like, they have the spell compendium and the magic item compendium and the rules compendium, which do help a lot with organization. Like, because the spell compendium exists, if you need to find a spell and you want to use physical books, you go to the player's handbook, see if it's there. If it's not, you go to the magic item, or you go to the spell compendium, because there is no overlap between the two. There isn't a single spell in the player's handbook that's in the the spell compendium. Not quite sure the reason for that, but it doesn't include core. But yeah, you check those two books, and if it's not, and most spells are going to be in one of them. There's some that aren't, but the vast majority of, well, not the vast, but the majority of spells are in one of those two, which is very helpful. And then you have the magic item compendium, which kind of same deal. You doesn't have anything that's in the it doesn't have anything that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but you can find stuff in there. but it has pretty much everything else. So between the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Magic Item Compendium, you have basically every magic item in the game, which is really handy. And then the Rules Compendium, that honestly just has the rules that are in the player's handbook, but laid out in a much easier way to find. Much less useful now in 2023. Very, very useful back in 2009. Oh my lord, was that so useful in 2009? Because back then, when you couldn't just pull out your phone and like Google the rules, because that just nobody had smartphones back in 2009, at least not where I came from. And yeah, that was it just would have been a pain. You would have had to go to a computer, would have completely interrupted the session. Rules Compendium was a godsend back then. Now it's still useful, but not near as much. But yeah, sorry. Autocorrect error. It's all good. Rye, is that how you say that? Um, I can just imagine a tiny man just lightly holding its tail, and it's just stopping dead in the air and dropping. That would be tricky to do. You'd have to be freaking high level, especially if it's like a massive dragon, because you're going to have to be pulling really hard to pull that one off. Um, but yeah, that can definitely be done. Grappling dragons can be crazy. The dragon was only one size bigger than me, so it could not fly because I weigh too much. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because yeah, I think even if you did grapple a dragon by the tail, that does make sense that it could still fly away, because yeah, you've grappled it and it can't like escape the grapple, but it can still fly and just drag you with it. That does make a lot of sense. um but yeah, if it's only one size category bigger, yeah, it probably wouldn't be able to fly, because typically you can't fly if you're in a medium or heavy load, unless you take the feats, which interestingly enough are, I believe, in the races of the dragon. So interesting little circle back there, because we're talking about dragons, and it's the races of the dragon that has the feats that let dragons you know carry medium and heavy loads. So yeah, what's my so not tiny. Yeah. So what's your favorite 3.5 ebook? Book cover? Ooh, artist. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Art's not something I think about all that much. Um, yeah, I honestly can't say. It's not something I've ever considered. I'm just like, oh, that looks cool, and I don't really. Yeah, it hasn't gone too much beyond that. Other than back when I was first playing, when I was like, you know, an 18 or 17, 18-year-old kid looking at my monster manual and being like, wow, there is some like soft like nudity in this. I'm like, oof, you know. That's probably the most I've ever really noticed the art was with that crap. But aside from that, you know, can't say I've really done a whole lot of thinking on that. The monster manual definitely has some really nice pictures, though. I will say that. You should watch Eye of the Beholder. It's all about the D&D art, the D&D artist. Ooh, nice. That's really cool. I might have to try that at some point, because I definitely like really appreciate artists, just because like art is something I cannot do. I am an absolutely horrid artist. I've tried my hand at it in the past, and I'm not good. Like I'm just not. It's not something I'm particularly talented at. It's not something I'm super interested in. So yeah, although I mean, I guess making videos and all that is an art, like video editing and making thumbnails, like that's an art. And I've started to get pretty good at making thumbnails, but actually making art from scratch, that's not something I can do. Like if you've looked at my thumbnails of the where I talk about various characters I've played, they don't have art because I can't make it. Honestly, I would like to at some point commission an artist to make make part of the thumbnail for that, like draw like a portrait of the character, and then I'll throw that in as the thumbnail. Um, but yeah, I don't have the money for that, and don't know too many artists, so that's a whole thing. Yeah, but I do very much appreciate artists, and I've had money in the past, but I use that to make a bunch of emotes for my Twitch stream, which I haven't been on Twitch in a while. So yeah, and I don't think I can make emotes on YouTube, at least not as far as I know. So yeah, uh, yeah, I don't think that's a thing that exists yet. I do have all my emotes on my Discord server. If anyone's interested, I don't know if any of you haven't joined that yet. I really should think about this ahead of time and like actually get links. Any favorite D&D puzzle encounter? Um, not. Oh, let me think. Puzzle encounter. I've made a few that I thought were pretty fun, like making them, but I haven't been in any. One that somebody gave me that was pretty interesting was basically it was a button in a room, um, and this button, when you enter the room seals you in, and all that's left, all that's in there is the button. And as you push it, you start like seeing and hearing things, and it's like the world, like the room's collapsing, and you get like this impending feeling of doom. And eventually, and things just get worse and worse as you continue to hold the button. And they'll stop as soon as you stop holding the button, but there's no way out, and you're just kind of trapped. And the solution is just keep holding the button. All the things that are, uh, and eventually it's like you're going to die if you keep holding the button. But the solution is just keep holding it. All that's just a lie, and it's just all illusions. And if you just keep holding it, nothing will happen, and like nothing bad will happen. All the illusions will just end, and the door will open, and you'll be free to go. So that's an interesting puzzle that friend of mine gave me that is in one of my games. Um, so yeah, that was something cool. I'm getting you guys links if anybody wants to join the Discord or Twitch, just in case. I should have set this up ahead of time, but I keep forgetting. Furiously taps the button. See, if you tap the button, then nothing happens. You have to hold it. So like if you're just tapping it, it would just keep starting and restopping, and like basically nothing would happen. Is this the OGL free space? What do you mean the OGL free space? Oh, the open game license free space. Uh, I mean, I don't like those are just some ideas that a friend of mine had, like, and I used in my game. I don't suspect he'd have an issue with people using those. So yeah. But yeah, if you want to join the Discord or check me out on Twitch, I haven't streamed in a while on Twitch, but mostly playing Pokemon on there. I've also done some like Final Fantasy, done a bit of Zelda, a bit of Mario, mostly the old school Mario's. I don't mess, and also Paper Mario. I don't mess with the new stuff. But yeah, uh, just figured I'd drop that link in case, or those links in case anybody was curious. I think he mentions that we aren't constantly mentioning the open game license, which could get annoying. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we aren't mentioning it, which, is fine. What do you mean? What do you mean it could get annoying if we aren't constantly mentioning it? Have you ever published any of my homebrew adventures? No. No. All my adventures are homebrew, but yeah, no, I've never published any of them. I don't have a whole lot of writing talent. I've started writing as the story of a character that I made in my best friend's campaign, but it's probably never going to get published. But like, it's two separate stories. One, his backstory, and then two, the story of his like the campaign. Each one is currently about 130 pages handwritten. Like I literally freaking took a mechanical pencil and like wrote down like each word by hand. Um, so that was fun on stupid college ruled line paper. Yeah, that was a thing. But yeah, I haven't ever gone beyond that. I went crazy with that character though. That was my fighter druid. I really love that character. But yeah, I've never published anything. But yeah, like if you want to talk about the OGL, that's fine. But I I mean, I've looked into it a bit more, and I mean, it sounds like they were trying to rescind the original open game license, which is interesting because that one literally says that it can't be rescinded in its own like wording, which makes me really wonder if like they even legally could do that. My guess, like I've said in the past, is I think that it would have just applied to the future stuff going forward. So it would have just been for like one D&D. But yeah, at the same time, like I can see why Wizards might want to crack down on some stuff, like the fact that literally all of the PDFs are just free online. You know, if you want to look at any of the 3.5 books, you can literally just Google D&D 3.5, name of book, PDF. It'll often even autocomplete PDF, and you can just go in and click the link, and boom, there's PDFs there for you. Like it's not that hard to find. Um, I yeah, they're not that hard to find. Uh, how do you plan out your character concepts? And do you plan them out to level 20? Oh yeah, always to level 20, at least. Sometimes higher, but always at least to level 20. But I always go in with an idea of kind of what I want. I go in with a basic concept of like, I want to be like Rambo, or I want to be somebody that's all about doing heists, or I want to be somebody that likes to craft, or I want to be a rage mage. You know, I go in with a basic idea, and then from there, I just kind of start researching things that kind of work towards that, and I see what works. I look at synergies. Um, like I'll look at classes, I'll look at prestige classes that all kind of fit in that general scheme of what I'm going for, and I'll look at see what's working, what's synergizing, what's not synergizing. So yeah, and from there I'll kind of like rule things out, or move towards a certain direction. But if like things aren't working, maybe I'll move back away from it towards another direction. And yeah, I'll just spend hours just kind of like going around in circles to some extent, slowly making progress towards making this character. And I'll usually focus on the prestige classes first, and then I'll start leaning towards like feats. um yeah, but classes and prestige classes are like the main focus. And then I'll lean towards feats and spells, and if applicable, because sometimes you're making something that doesn't have spells or powers. But yeah, you start from the ground up. I'll typically, I start with the classes and prestige classes, then I'll try and find a race and some feats, and yeah. And and if I see something like there's a reason to change things up, I'll look into changing it up, and then hopefully that doesn't screw other things up. Yeah, it can be a whole thing, but yeah, it's very complicated, very hard to explain. It's kind of a chaotic mess, but like with intent. So yeah, uh, LO, that's a good point. Also, welcome in Potatoes is Life. Um, but yeah, that's basically my approach to it is, you start with classes and races. You start with classes, prestige classes, move on to races and feats and all that. And you just kind of go with what works. I keep the end in mind. Like I don't think about like I don't think about the individual steps along the way. I think about what my end goal is, and the individual steps are just a way of achieving the end goal. So I'm looking at like what this character is going to look like at level 20. I'm not so much looking at how playable this character is going to be towards level 20, which sometimes can be a problem, but most of the time isn't too bad. Your channels really helped me go from 5e to 3.5. I'm really glad to hear that. Um, that's something I've definitely been trying to push a bit more, is to try and get people to convert from 5e to 3.5, because 3.5 is so much better in my opinion. There's so much more to do. And 5e is great. It's mostly the same as 3.5, just dumbed down, and it's a lot easier to get into. Like the learning curve for 3.5 is really high, and it's much lower for 5e. So 5e is a great way to get started with Dungeons and Dragons, and like 5e's learning curve's even high for a lot of people. Like I've talked to plenty of people who get intimidated by 5e, so that I get it. But like some people, like they even do like the little uh those little 5e boxes you can do that are like dumbed down 5e. I've known some people who play those. I don't touch them personally because like I play 3.5, and two, even if I played 5e, I wouldn't mess with those. But yeah, like those are great for getting people started in the game. Um, yeah, it's good to move up. 3.5 so much better personally, in my opinion. So much more customization. Like 5e, you can't just spend hours like diving in and coming up with a character concept. You just can't do it in 5e. With 3.5 you can. Like that's what makes it fun. That's what I love about 3.5 is character builds. You can come up with so many of them, and you can make them so customizable to make them exactly what you're looking for. Yeah, although there are some that just really stand out above others when you're going for things, which it's a little bit of a problem. But yeah. um, have you ever thought about making your own game system? I have, not too seriously, but I have thought about it. Basically, the most thought I put into it is I think I would make it a level 25 system, and I would make it so that so basically 25 is your last level before epic. Um, or I guess 25 would be your first level of epic, because basically how it would work is your first 24 levels would be like your class. And the reason why I went with 24 is it's multiple of it divides evenly with both 3 and 4. So you get both a feat and a ability point modifier. Then 25th level, it actually doesn't give you it wouldn't give you a hit dice, and but it wouldn't give you much of anything. It would give you one ultra feat, which is way better than any feat in the game. Like it's just like this super super good, overpowered thing. You get one of them, and that's the entirety of what you get at 25th level. And then you move on to 26th to 49th, which is epic. And then at 50th, you get your first demigod feat, which works exactly the same as 25, except for it's even more overpowered because level 50. And then it just kind of scales up. Like basically there's your not there's your kind of like run of the mill, you know which run of the mill goes from your peasant farmer to your you know glorious warrior in combat, but like your veteran hardened fighter. But at the same time, like they're still only capable of mortal things. Whereas your next thing is like epic. They're like pushing the limits of what the human body can do and going a little beyond that, and then you start going into like the godly stuff. That's the base concept of my system. Yeah. Haven't gone much beyond that in terms of coming up with anything. um which that's really not a lot to go off of. I need a lot more to actually say I have a system. um I do miss 3.5e being the focus of the gaming community. I do as well. Um, and it was as well as like the focus of YouTube, because there was a time when 3.5 was the focus of YouTube. Actually, when I started my channel, I think that was the case, and there wasn't a whole lot out there back then. Like, it was me, and there was like a couple of other guys, but there wasn't a lot. Um, but yeah, I did used to be. When I started this channel, 3.5 was kind of the focus, and I do kind of miss that a little. Especially seeing as if I had kept going when that had happened, this channel would probably be so much bigger by now. But you live and learn, and yeah. 5e is hard carried by third-party content. Official stuff tends to be lackluster. Interesting. I haven't looked that much at 5e, but that makes sense. Gustavo Moret, I followed your channel here in Brazil. It's one of the few channels that still talks exclusively about 3.5. Oh yeah, I think it might even be the only one, to be honest. Which for me is also the best edition of D&D. Oh yeah, 100%, it's the best. And yeah, I'm basically the only one that actively is covering this. There's some other people that have come and gone, but no one, as far as I know, is really like active. If anybody knows of any active 3.5 channels, like, let me know, because I've looked and I haven't been able to find really anything. Because I want to know, one, the competition, and two, like potential people to collab with. Because like YouTube, it's not really competition; it's collaborative. So yeah, like I've tried reaching out to people before, but they're not active, so they've never heard anything. So it is what it is. Um, After absolutely 3.5 official content surpassed third party. Fast forward 20 years, and 5e requires third party content to make it exciting and sometimes just to function. Yeah. I I'm not sure if I even, what is the third party content? I'm assuming, is that like the settings books, like Forgotten Realms and stuff? Or is that like various splat books? Like, what is the third party stuff? Because I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, because a lot of it's official as far as I'm aware. So I'm not even sure what the I'm really not sure what the third party stuff for 3.5 is. Or are you just talking about homebrew stuff? Because there's a lot of homebrew and most of it is broken. An epic boon. Yeah, basically an epic boon would effectively be what you'd get at 25th level. You just get one epic boon. There'd be like a list of things you can choose from, and you pick the one that fits you most. They might have like requirements that you would have had to have met getting to them. Like, if you had a barbarian, I don't think it'd make any sense for you to be able to take one that lets you be a better spellcaster. Like, I don't think that would be. I think there'd be requirements that, didn't allow that. But yeah, D20 system for 5e. Yeah, 5e is. I mean, it's not that different than 3.5. Like, it's really just 3.5, but watered down. Like, that's really all there is to it. They changed up a little bit, but it's not like other editions of D&D, like 4e, where it's a D6 system, or AD&D where AC is done completely different, or the things in the older editions. There's a lot of things that are different, but and 4e is just a completely different system. I think 5e is the first time where they ever said, you know what, we did really good with this previous system. Let's keep this system and just kind of streamline it. So that's really what 5e is. Well, Wizards decided to go back to 3.5 and streamline it. The reason? Because Pathfinder was kicking their butts. Yeah, that's 100% the reason. Third-party content is anything produced for a system, but not produced by an official source. Gotcha. So you're talking about stuff that you'd find that's generally classified as homebrew. Okay, gotcha. Um, there's a Brazilian channel that I think basically copies stuff you do. Really, there's a Brazilian channel copying me. As soon as you started making shorts about feats, he also started But in Our Language. Really, I did not know about that. Okay. Uh, but it's not an exclusively 3.5 channel either, although it focuses a lot on our best system. Really? What's this channel called? I'm very curious now. Uh, 3.5 edition can be the most broken, but it is the most accurate, intrinsic, and gritty version to play. Oh, yeah, very much. Uh, and you're right, it can be the most broken, like Pun Pun. Let's be real, Pun Pun exists. But if you're a DM that's worth your salt, you're not going to let the game get too broken. You're just going to say, oh, that's broken. It's not allowed. And you're going to know where to draw the line on stuff to be like, oh, no, I should allow that because just not allowing anything is stupid. But, and just not fair to the player. But at the same time, like setting limits to not allow cheese and exploits, yeah, that's completely fair as long as you let your players know about it ahead of time, so they're not investing resources into making builds that are built around exploits and cheese. Or at the very least, if you don't mention it and your players make these builds, give them the opportunity to remake their character in a way that would have fit them that they would have done had they known. Don't leave them stranded. You know, it's it's not like if you just gotta be respectful and know what you're doing is really what it comes down to. Um, but yeah, but it's also intricate and gritty. Oh yeah, 100%. Although the grit kind of goes away at higher levels when death becomes not really a fear anymore. But yeah, especially at low levels when death is a real major fear. Although at high levels, death is way more common, but it's easy to overcome. So yeah, because like at low levels, you get put in dying situations fairly commonly because that -1 to -9 range is fairly easy to hit when you're low level. But when you're level 20 and you have like 300 HP, getting dropped down to negative into the negatives without dying is kind of tough. Like most of the time you get dropped, you're dead. You're not dying. You're just dead because that window doesn't expand as you get higher level, but the consequences of death go down. So it's kind of a trade-off. Um, the third party content for 3.5 was pretty lackluster for the most part. Interesting. I'm curious exactly what it is. Is it like in books? Because I'm assuming it's not any of the books. I'm assuming it's like stuff that you can find online. Oh, I'm trying to remember what the website was that had it. So many players go to it by accident, and it's one that you really got to avoid because there's so much homebrew on there, and most of it is stupid broken, either completely useless broken or completely overpowered broken. So there's that. Uh, Not even broken as in overpowered, though. There's plenty of that too. It was mostly broken as in not functional. Yeah, there's a lot of that too. Like I was saying, there's both. um, AD&D is the grittiest edition, to be honest. I haven't played AD&D, but I believe you on that. Um, in that edition, combat becomes a last resort since it doesn't hold back with its monsters. Interesting. Yeah, and I suspect they kind of follow the same trend with 3.5 that they did with 5e of making dying less scary. Like in 5e, if you get dropped below 0, you have a 50-50 shot of recovering on your own. And you have 3 turns to, you have actually more than 3 turns. Typically, you're going to have like 4 or 5 turns before you actually die. So the other players don't really, it's not a super big rush to like get you back up immediately. So yeah, I can see that being a thing. That and generally in 5e, like when you're making your death saves, like everyone at the table knows how you're doing on recovery. So they like have an idea whether to rush in and help you or not. Although I guess the same can be said for 3-5, even though technically they shouldn't have that information. They should have to make heal checks and know if you know you're dying. But most DMs don't keep that information private. D&D modern is one. Oh, you're talking about one D&D? That's not out yet, though. I don't think, is it? Unless it just recently came out. As far as I know, it's not out yet, though. I mean, there's beta tests for it, but I don't think it's like officially out, as far as I've heard. Or D20 is modern one, yeah. D20 is, yeah, that's the modern die using the modern D20 system. Oh, and I just realized we hit the 2-hour mark. So, all right, I guess we're gonna wrap things up then. It was great hanging out with you. Like, I didn't even realize we hit the time because it was it was going so well. I just looked, I'm like, oh wow, and I hit it like almost dead on too. But yeah, I will see you guys again next week, same time, noon Pacific Standard Time. Yeah, and we'll do another 2-hour live stream where you guys can ask me questions. We can talk about Dungeons and Dragons, just hang out, have a good time. Um, but yeah, if you're curious, you can join my Discord or check me out on Twitch if you haven't done so already. Drop those in chat again. But yeah, thank you everybody for hanging out. I really appreciate it. It really does mean a lot. And thank you so much for helping me hit 1,000 subscribers. Like, I'm trying to do this full time. So, you know, I'm really trying to grow this to the point where I can actually make a living off of it. So your guys' support really does mean a lot. So I really do appreciate it. But yeah, anyways, as always, I'm Mitch. I'll be seeing you.